According to NYU's Brennan Center for Justice, since last year, Republicans in 19 states have enacted laws aimed at rolling back voting rights. Those laws include high-profile voter ID laws in Texas, South Carolina, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, all of which are the subject of legal fights. And in Ohio and Florida, Republicans have pushed through changes that slash the number of days and hours allowed for early voting. Congressman Sestak, in Pennsylvania in particular, I thought this was staggering. 9.2% of registered voters in Pennsylvania lack state-issued voter ID. 18% in Pennsylvania, which is 44% black. I mean, to say that this is not disproportionately targeting minorities is shocking. In Florida, in Duval County, on the Sunday before the 2008 election, 43% of early votes came from African Americans. This is a major issue, and it trends just exactly along racial lines.
I think that's exactly why the Department of Justice has rightly asked the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to reveal some of the data by which it made its decision. This is going to impact those that tend to be old, tend to be disabled, tend to be poor, and the minorities. And I think that's the shame of what's happened here. Even the Commonwealth judge, who said just a few weeks ago, in supporting the state law, he said that, well, somewhere between 1% to 9% of people are going to be impacted by that. 1% is 80,000 people alone. 9% is 80,000 people, 800,000. This is, without a question, going to go against those that the law must most protect. I can tell you one example of a veteran in my district who is old, disabled, fought in a war, blind. And because he, as a child, then was adopted by his stepfather, he had his birth certificate changed. And until today, where they just changed the law one more time, he was unable in time to get the right data in order to go forward and vote. That's the shame about all this.
Well, Ari, when you hear those stories, I mean, there's so many anecdotes about people who have voted for years, decades, who understand it to be their constitutional right, and then all of a sudden the rules change. I thought in Ohio, the fact that now early voting is being changed. It used to be 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. for certain weeks before the election. Now it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, there's just no logic here in terms of cutting back on days and hours of voting.
No, the only logic is to make it harder for Democrats to vote. I mean, that is the over-encompassing logic that gets at all these different pieces of legislation. I mean, the thing is, it's just so confusing for voters now. You have in Pennsylvania, we're 2 months out from the election, and somewhere between 80,000 and 800,000 registered voters might not be able to vote. I mean, that's crazy. Look at Ohio. Every week, the voting hours change. You look at Florida, the voter registration rules, it's one rule, then it's another rule. And so beyond the fact that we are suppressing voters, we're just also confusing them unnecessarily. And I think it's going to be an absolute mess on election day.
Not just confusing them, but also scaring them. We found, in 2004, I worked for the DNC. We worked on this issue. We did focus groups. We found that a discussion of how difficult it was to vote actually scared voters away from the polls. They just sort of said, you know, it's going to be a hassle. Somebody's going to want to look at my ID and my documentation. I just don't want to deal with it. I'll stay home. I won't bother. So even the very discussion of this discourages voting.
Absolutely. 220 years here in Pennsylvania, where the Constitution was founded, giving the right to vote, where that right to vote is mentioned 4 times in the Constitution, and yet freedom of the press and freedom of religion is only mentioned once. Somehow, our Commonwealth state has decided party is more important than citizen. That's what's outrageous about this, is you're supposed to, as a public servant, put your party underneath the citizen, and that's what's not happened here.
Congressman Joe Sestak, thank you so much for your time, sir. We will, of course, be monitoring this in your home state and states beyond. And thank you to you,
Thanks.
Ari
Great to be with you.